In section 5 of Alchian's Uncertainty, Evolution, and Economic Theory, he's really bringing together the preceding sections. He's talking about the varying and conflicting objectives that motivate economic activity, while then also talking about how individuals adapt via imitation. So he's kind of combining together this trial and error process, this randomness process, and the ability to imitate. So he's kind of pushing to the foreground this mess of the economic process, that in reality we face so much uncertainty, and there's varying motivations behind the actors in that uncertainty, and seeing how do we ever make sense of an economy then? Can these standard neoclassical economic models still be used? They seem too neat and too clean, right? He argues that foregoing this reality of this messiness and the reality of so much uncertainty simplifies the market process story of success and evolution. If we think that the model is reality, if we're seeing Homo economicus everywhere, then that's limiting variety. It's limiting conflict. It's limiting the random-like element that Alchian discussed in the previous sections. Alchian argues that to understand the economic system, what we have to do to understand how it really works, it has to come from more than two sources, right? And the two sources kind of that are the traditional standard approach would say that we have this rational pursuit of optimal profits or consumer utility. So Alchian is saying it has to be more than this just rational, hyper-rational basis of things. We have these two sources, trial and error and imitation. First, we can think of trial and error. As Alchian says in page 219 of his paper, success is discovered by the economic system through a blanketing shotgun process, not by the individual through converging search. So that is our idea that we have this trial and error side of things. This is that randomness, right? Where the system adopts us. And then second, what happens is we have imitation. After the buckshot of variation, we have imitation. On page 218, he says, quote, whenever successful enterprises are observed, the elements common to these observable successes will be associated with success and copied by others. So we imitate. He makes a small subpoint that a great deal of pioneering and leadership in the economic realm occurs by failed attempts at imitation even. But these failed attempts just take us back to the first point, variation, right? Variation in this trial and error, even if it's variation by an inability to imitate. And so he has these elements of trial and error and imitation is very much so in the foreground. He argues that we should value this process of variation and imitation. We should value the freedom to have different behavior as it provides more shots that may hit our target. In order for trial and error to help, we need to have more attempts. We need to have that variety. Alchian sees the world as full of uncertainty, and we have to really stress this here. This is the idea of Frank Knight's risk versus uncertainty. Risk is present when the future events occur with a measurable probability. Uncertainty is present when the likelihood of future events is indefinite or incalculable. Alchian argues that uncertainty needs venturesome and different behavior. There are benefits from variety. Page 213, he says, quote, the greater the uncertainties of the world, the greater is the possibility that profits would go to the venturesome and lucky, rather than to logical, careful, fact-gathering individuals. We need that variety in this kind of system where we're actually trying to find answers within uncertainty. With variety and venturesome behavior, we will get more serendipitous moments. Serendipity can be thought of as a major discovery that one was not looking for, one that alters one's own interpretation of what one is doing, and that is obvious to the discoverer. It hits you in the face. Think of Jed Clampett, the television character of the Beverly Hillbillies, who's out shooting and all of a sudden discovers oil. The discovery hits him in the face. It's this serendipitous moment that we have here. For more details on serendipitous moments and things like this, I suggest you read Dan Klein's Knowledge and Coordination. But from here, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of see how would this impact an economic system within Alchian's framework here. Even if the action seems arbitrary, romantic, or foolhardy, we must remember the motivations of actors need not be singular or optimized to create beneficial outcomes. With adaptation, imitation, and trial and error, the market process can do quite wonderful things with even embarrassing inputs. We should not be so quick to rule out the seemingly errant behavior of others. In hindsight, the answers to society's economic questions may seem obvious, but often we call those answers foolhardy before they become answers. Serendipitous moments can create positive outcomes or discoveries that become seemingly obvious solutions once they're discovered, but they're only obvious in hindsight. We oversell our ability to control, manipulate, and even understand the complexity of markets, and we undersell and simplify the market process story of success and evolution when we do not appreciate serendipitous moments, when we do not appreciate varying and conflicting objectives that motivate economic activity. Click on the next video to see some fun examples that represent and highlight the ideas found in Alchian's Section 5 of Uncertainty, Evolution, and Economic Theory.